Cafe Anyway. That's right.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
It is Mike Matthew. Episode 2320. What?
Mike's Daily Podcast.
It's Mike's Daily Podcast, and I'm singing a song really softly because I think I'm kind of off today. I don't really know what the episode is. It's 2326, and I hope you had a great showbiz-filled Halloween day.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Because, you know, we do that thing where we get all dressed up, like to perform
Mike's
a character
Daily
at Halloween.
Podcast.
I hope it was fun.
Yeah!
And you went to a cool scene. The last podcast picture was a little cemetery at Six Flags over Texas. They have a tribute to some of their defunct rides, one of them being Flashback. And let's see, there's one called Skyhook that lasted from 63 to 68. And I guess that, you know, because Six Flags is older than the other place that they've been celebrating lately. Oh, Disney World. Yeah, it started a whole 10 years earlier than Disney World. So it's got that behind it. And I believe it was the flagship Six Flags. But as I mentioned in the last podcast, I get a lot of motion sickness. I get rather sick from it. So I don't like to frequent those places. So it was fun though. We went with some friends. It was a lot of fun. Hey, I want to thank you for getting me over 42,000 downloads for this podcast, because people still download. It's amazing that people know how to download. Nobody knows how to download. Do you know people, if you say download, I think the average person goes, what? What are you saying? That's inappropriate. Stop it. But that's what, you know, some people will say in order to make it sound like they are bigger than they are. They're going to fake it.
And here's today's podcast picture.
Till they make it. And then some people fake it a long, long, long time. And eventually, the podcast picture today, though, has nothing to do with any of that. It has to do with the wonderful, what is this? Oh, it is from yesterday, the wonderful Halloween place I went to, place down the street. They had some cool stuff set up. It was witch-oriented, and you can see that at mikesdailypodcast.com. Some pumpkins. Very nice. I liked it. Thank you. And Basil the Boxer and I used to walk past this place too, so nice to remember Basil yesterday. The late great Basil the Boxer. So can you fake it till you make it? I don't like the whole lack of authenticity behind that statement. I don't like the whole not being who you are. I try to be who I am. I am at Cafe Anyway, somewhere in Podcastro Valimont, the last place on earth. It's true. These people are real. Aren't you real, people behind me? Aren't you real? Question mark. Do you know I keep forgetting to talk about Mort Saul? I would love to tell you that I met Mort Saul, but I never did. On my birthday, about less than 5 years ago, I decided I was going to go drive to Mill Valley and see him at this place. I think it's called the Throckmorton Theater, or Throckmorton Theater, something like that. And apparently twice a week he would do a one-man performance. He'd bring out a newspaper and start talking and make political jokes, which is oxymoron. Ha 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 ha, political joke, because it means the same thing. Politics, politicians are jokes, something like that. Anyway, Cafe Anyway, Mort Saul will get up there, tell his jokes. Now, I was going to do that, and then I saw they wanted $60 a ticket, and I said, nah, I'd love to see the old guy, but no. Now, there's a guy who's a great inspiration for this podcast, even though I have been doing this podcast longer than this guy was doing his podcast. I don't even know if he still does it. Greg Proops, great comedian, another comedian. He's still alive as far as I know. He's from the Bay Area, San Carlos to be exact, or San Bruno. But Greg also does this thing where his podcast titles are one word. If he still does the smartest man in the world, or the greatest, smartest person in the podcast world, or something was the name of his podcast, he would talk about how you need to see people, older performers, see them before they die. You don't know if they're going to be around much longer. So he would have told me, had he known me, Mike, go see Mort Saul. Spend the $60, whatever it is, you'll never get this chance again. And he was right, even though he didn't say that. But Mort Saul is no longer with us. He passed away, I believe, at the age of 94 last week. An interesting fact I didn't know was that Robin Williams had the same idea I had and went to see Mort Saul perform. Get this, the night before he died. Robin Williams did. And this is all this in Mill Valley, which is really close to Tiburon, where Robin Williams died. So there's this interesting Marin County connection. Mort Saul, Robin Williams, both comedians, both using a lot of stream of consciousness type of humor. They really didn't come in too prepared. They just had a couple of things in mind, and then they just went for it. A lot of similarities between Mort Saul and Robin Williams. Mort Saul, however, for a short while, was a disc jockey or a radio announcer, or a talk show host, more is what he was, in Los Angeles in the 60s, I think it was. 60s, 70s, somewhere in that era. So, Mort Saul. And I only know of Mort Saul because for a short time in 1990 to 1991, I worked at a radio station called Comedy Radio. KMDY. It was out of Thousand Oaks. And I would come on at 6 o'clock and I would play comedy cuts and then talk in between them. As we go outside a cafe anyway, we were bringing Mike's Daily Podcast somewhere in Podcastro Valley. Mont. Podcastro Valley, Mont. And that is where I came up with the idea for Bison Bentley, by the way. So, comedy radio. All the comedy cuts were on cassettes. And we had to fast forward. We had a cassette player that could count how many cuts in. So if you told it go 6 cuts in, it would do that, and you would have your comedy cut there. Because we couldn't burn CDs yet. We didn't have that technology to burn CDs. That really didn't come around until 2000. So this is 1990, a whole 10 years earlier. So cassettes were the only way to do it. And we would play some cuts from Mort Saul, and I would have no idea what he was talking about. He'd be making jokes about whatever president, Nixon or whatever. Interestingly enough, he got I think a Grammy Award for a comedy album. He would put out comedy albums, and he got a Grammy Award for some of them. He also decided to step away from comedy right after John F. Kennedy was killed. And in a couple of weeks, we'll be remembering that horrible, horrible day, which unfortunately is also my birthday, which is also a horrible, horrible day. Going to be 53 this year. Wow. So, Mort Saul, there you go. Look him up. Fascinating individual. All your political comedians. I mean, the fact that he didn't write it all out ahead of time and just sort of spur of the moment, whatever was happening that day, and he'd make jokes about it, really impressive. So, there are a lot of people in this world that have no talent whatsoever. But they got a lot of confidence. And that helps them fake it till they make it. From the website cognitiontoday.com, in a group of studies, researchers found that people's confidence creates a positive social status even if others think that their confidence is unjustified. What this says is that you can fake your confidence and then use your social feedback, others seeing you in a positive light, to gain actual confidence. Now, there are people that lie. They're not what they say they are, but yet they excel because they've created this perception around them that they are what they aren't. But because they're confident, it somehow makes this prophecy come true. To act confident, address your posture. A stooped posture can activate a negative mood and even slow down your recovery from an existing negative mood. It would be ideal if you maintain a very straight posture while sitting and standing. It is one of the simplest ways to build confidence. Now, if you are trying to make it in this world, and you're not the lying type, you're the authentic type, you have a lot of austerity to you, you are truthful, you believe in the truth, but you would like to succeed, perhaps confidence is what you need to work on, and to do that, maybe follow that suggestion from cognitiontoday.com. Don't waste money buying expensive products to fake your self-image to make it. People who want to feel confident or successful to create a better self-image often buy products such as designer clothes, shoes, makeup, etc. This makes them feel like a high-value individual, dress for success, that sort of thing. However, research shows that this might backfire and they would eventually dwell on their shortcomings and failures. Take a step backward, learn alternatives, and then fake it. Richard E. Watts has developed a technique called reflecting as if, or RAI, or RAI, which is a strategic fake it till you make it process. He suggests taking a step backward before faking your ideal self and reflecting on how one would behave. This would allow us to gain new perspectives and alter behaviors in a streamlined fashion to reach our ideal selves. So faking it here is actually going backward to assess alternatives and then moving forward to reach your desired self, to make it. It's especially powerful when there are mental health concerns that fuel the need to make it. So step back from your situation, reflect on how you are, choose an alternate version of how you want to be, act as if you are what you have chosen to be. This was addressed in the episode of Seinfeld where you had Jerry and George Costanza talking, and George talking about how he fails at all this stuff, and Jerry goes, well, why don't you just, whatever you would naturally do the opposite? And he ends up being successful. Talk about your goals and aspirations. People who talk about your goals, when they talk about their goals and aspirations, that they received more respect and admiration in their social context than those who talked about their mundane commute or life obligations. So, acting more powerful and happy had a positive, lasting effect, according to this study. Use your middle name to fake smartness. One of the easiest ways to fake it is to use your middle name initials. So I'm Mike H. Matthews, which I am on Facebook, by the way, because there's a Michael Matthews who's like a bodybuilder and has a lot of, and he's successful. He's got a lot of he's sold a lot of books. So I'm Mike H. to differentiate. There you go. So I hope you had a great Halloween. I walked around in Podcastro Valley near a street where lots of cool front yard displays were set up, cool lights, cool costumes and stuff, skeletons and dummies and whatnot, whatever you call them, and lights. And didn't get any candy though, but it was a lot of fun. And we're outside a cafe anyway, somewhere in Podcastro Valley, Mont, the last place on earth. Look who's here right now. Hello, Michael Mash, it's Madame Rootabega on trick or treat. Oh, okay. Was I supposed to give you candy? Yes. Do you want candy? Yes. Would you like some of this delicious Asian candy I got from Daisu? No. It's funny because my former roommate was from Hong Kong and he would buy a lot of that candy. Or is it Daisu? Is that the name of the store? We've got like a couple of those in the Bay Area. And some of the candy, it's got like real tart flavors. And I still have some. And I was like, if any kids show up, I'm going to give them this. But no such luck. Look who else is here. Hello there, Mike. This is Valentino, the parking attendant. And this is Bison Bentley. Mike, I didn't know that the origin of Bison Bentley was the comedy radio day. Yeah, comedy radio. Do you know that? Yes, that's where you came from. Wow, trick or treat. Do you know that? No candy. Oh, it's been great out here. I was scared several times in the past few minutes, as you could tell, by people jumping out at me. Oh, there goes another one. And yes, it's because it's spooky, and we didn't do the Halloween show yesterday because I did get so busy with all of the stuff I had to do. And running around and walking and checking out all these cool front yard Halloween displays everywhere, like the one you see at mikesdailypodcast.com as the podcast picture. So I am sorry I did not do a podcast, but I wanted to zip through two things that are unrelated. Neo-Marxism, because you hear that term used by a lot of conservatives these days. Just so you know, in case you don't know what that is and your eyes glaze over when you hear neo-Marxist. A neo-Marxist is someone who rejects the concept of economic determinism, which is the idea that all of society's decisions are ultimately determined by economic conditions, and that capitalist societies will inevitably collapse due to the capitalists' economic system's inherent contradictions. Neo-Marxists believe that society's decisions are determined by the ideology as well as economic conditions, and that it is the hegemonic ideology of the bourgeoisie that keeps workers from starting the world revolution that was thought inevitable by orthodox Marxists. Okay, now I've lost myself. But that is the UrbanDictionary.com's definition, in case you hear that. Basically, it sounds like people that don't believe in capitalism. Which, if that's true, that's kind of difficult for people that are trying to fake it till they make it, because they want to succeed in a capitalist society here in America anyway. There's a lot there. There's a lot going on in the statements that I just said, so I think I will leave it at that point. And there we go. Next show, it'll be the wonderful, what a way to end a show. Chely Shoehart, Floyd the Floorman, John Deere the engineer. We covered a lot. If you'd like to comment on anything that we talked about, 336MM daily, 3 + 3 = 6. MM as in Mike Matthews. Daily, what this podcast will try to be yet again. I hope it was a great Halloween. And now we got my birthday coming up and Thanksgiving. So the fun never ends. Oh, and Veterans Day is coming up next week, or the week after, I forget. Just so much happening. So keep it here on Mike's Daily Podcast, because every day there's something fascinating right here at Cafe Internet. See that? I can't wait till that whole thing stops. I guess it did stop. Yesterday was the last day. You can't do that anymore. Stop with the scaring Mike. Thanks.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com. Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!